on Google Classroom that is available to you now that would kind of go along with your essay for the Grapes of Wrath. At the top of the page, right now you have this Declaration of Academic Integrity. The quiz thing will be there tomorrow. After you submit your essay, I want you to fill out this form, and it's due through Friday. So you could submit the essay, just at 11:59 p.m. You could then go to sleep for like a couple hours, wake up, study your physics, and then go to school on Friday feeling all bushy-eyed and cheery, and then have a hard darkness test. But then at some point on Friday, I want you to fill out this Declaration of Academic Integrity. It's just a Google form. First thing you're going to do is it'll pop up and it's going to ask, what is the assignment? Notice in Scrabble it spells integrity. Yeah. Ooh. No points, but your essay is not submitted until you submit this.
No, I meant like in Scrabble.
Oh, in Scrabble. The G would be worth 2, Y 4. Everything else might just be 1. So for assignment, you would just put the Grapes of Wrath. And then when you hit next, it's going to basically bring up this I confirm statement. So it would be I confirm that, and then you would be checking off each one of these things. So I confirm that plagiarism is the presentation of someone else's work in whole or in part as my own. I confirm that any reference, consulted, and or research sources, both print and non-print, used to complete this assignment have been included in my works cited page. All through that stuff. So you would check these things off, and then at the bottom, when you go to the next page, it's going to ask for people that you worked with or that you consulted with on the essay. Everyone would have at least 2 because 2 people peer edited your essay. If you have more than 2, that's fine. And it could be parents, sibling, all that kind of stuff. But just list the people then that you worked with, and then there's just a final little signature thing at the end. And this is something that we just do for all of the take-home essays, so you'll get used to it. So it's just part of submitting the essay assignment. But the essay through Turnitin would be on Thursday, and then this and the peer editing papers that I collect from you, we'll be doing that on Friday. All right. Any questions about anything? There's not like fine language in there, fine print stuff that we're going to track Emma with, where you checked off that you agree to accepting a grade only 50% or lower or anything like that. I should make like a special form for like some poor sap. Submit this one to Heath. He thinks he's just checking off everything. And then, nope, I confirm that I don't want any credit. I confirm that Jesse is a superior human to me. I will do his bidding.
I like that.
Send one to Gray. I confirm that Chandler is, the better half.
Wow.
Tell them how you really feel. Jeez.
So let's talk about corruption and darkness and evil souls on that note. Transitioning us over beautifully. Oh, the quiz that you got back. They were fine. Medina referred to it as epic. So this is so epic. If you have any questions about something, or there was one where I didn't give you credit, you're like, I know this is true, and you come in and you show the page number and all that stuff, that we can take a look at it and might tweak some things. If you put something that I thought was too vague or too general, it was more in the sense of what would be some details to better support it. There was some, I think it was 7th period, where a person wrote something where I think they just kind of got confused. So I put the page number that I thought they were referring to, and then tried to explain where they may have goofed a little bit to kind of clarify. But with any of these, and we're not going to do this type of quiz all the time, so don't start memorizing the first 5, really specific details that the door was open 3/4 of the way, or there are 17 floorboards in the cabin, because that's not always going to be the type of quiz that would pop up. But if there's anything that you want to go over, let me know. We can take a look at it and go from there. So that would be true for any quiz, any kind of assignment, essay, all that stuff. All right, so I said here that I want to take a look at page 148 from yesterday when we were kind of talking about his sympathetic attitude towards Kurtz. And I do want to do that, but I want to do something first that I'm hoping kind of ties all this stuff in. Because in a couple of the classes yesterday, and we might have even mentioned it in here, how Conrad has some key terms that he'll keep coming back to or some key terms that he hardly ever uses, like Africa, Congo, names in general. But of the names that appear in the book, which one would you expect is used most frequently? Like whose name shows? Yes, Kurtz is by far and away. Thank you. The most popular one. We might have mentioned it in here. I don't remember if we did or not, but I think we did. That every now and then, more than once, although he does do it in the TWA passage that we talked about, he'll put an adjective in front of Kurtz in reference to the original Kurtz, how he, kind of was before what he is now. So we have an original Kurtz, and then we have, you could put new Kurtz, you could put now Kurtz, I guess you could put dead Kurtz, changed Kurtz, whatever. I'll go with changed. What would be some differences from original to new or changed? So, and what I mean would be, what would be, it could be a term, could be a quality or whatever that's over here, and then what's the new one over here? So the most basic example would probably be the original Kurtz is in Europe, the changed Kurtz, is in the Congo. So for things that have kind of like relationships, just what would be some things about?
Original Kurtz had a fiance that, as far as we knew, he was like faithful to, but then changed Kurtz just has like
Okay. And we might get into some, well, we can even start now. Are there any specific differences even like between the two where they kind of end up being like foil characters to one another? And we don't get a whole lot of details about, either, but.
The lady in Congo is like, she has a lot of jewelry and expensive wear. But
Which was a detail that a lot of people were kind of throwing in on yesterday's quiz.
and the person in Europe, they said like, she's like plain white forehead, but that's about all they say about it.
Okay. So, how about exotic? And here she's in mourning, dressed in black. So where we have like an abundance of jewelry and ivory, not going to be happening with her, as she's in this period of mourning, and it's been over a year since the death of Kurtz, and maybe someone who, to kind of contrast the exotic, a little more plain.
I would say that original Kurtz, his cousin was talking about music and how he was a musician.
Mhm.
Changed Kurtz is all about ivory.
And even kind of, we'll play off this and then we'll come back to what you were saying over here for the change cards. Music, he's a musician. What else do we know about him so far as like talents? And it could be that he had in Europe, or talents that we know were at least there originally when he came into the Congo that then don't really get used as much.
He was like a good orator.
Okay.
Orator.
And the voice is something that certainly, even though his health is declining, Marlowe still kind of goes, but that voice, so the voice is still kind of there. Musician, orator. We know that what else did he do art-wise? Because we talked about it. There's a sampling of it in the brickmaker's office. No? He was a painter. What does he paint? He painted what? Blindfolded, holding torch. We know that he was a writer. Kind of a journalist. And then, so you have, essentially someone who would be considered cultured. And then, Heath, since you originally brought this up, what do we have over here now?
Ivory.
So just someone who is basically, rather than worrying about the arts and culture, his sole interest is ivory. Nothing else. Heads on sticks. because he's getting so much ivory, what does that also kind of lead to? More so for the company than probably for him personally. But ivory basically equates to wealth, money, power. Do we know anything about his financial situation in Europe before he comes to the Congo?
He wasn't very rich. I don't know. What's the word? It started with a P. They call him like a not a piper.
Popper.
Yeah.
Was it that?
P-A-U-P-E-R, a pauper would be someone who's a poor person. On page 155, Marlowe, I had heard that her engagement with Kurtz had been disapproved by her people. He wasn't rich enough or something. So we don't know if he was penniless, per se. But he certainly did not have all of the money, all of the power, all of those things that he had over here. It was much more humble origins compared to money, power, greed, wealth. I'm going to get as much as I possibly can. And that's kind of reading between the lines a little bit, but what would be some other things then maybe we could kind of see some changes in Kurtz? Even think about the painting. Blind woman holding a torch. Blind woman, I believe we said most likely would represent, not too many blind women out there that, not Helen Keller. Took that answer away from me, right? I thought we said this, maybe we did. Almost. Not Lady Liberty, but historically there is Lady who doesn't hold torch, but would hold scales. But the idea that justice is blind, what do we mean by justice is blind? Justice is not prejudice. It does not discriminate. It's not going to look at someone and go male versus female, white, black, ethnicity, all of those kinds of things. So justice is blind. So he has this picture of Lady Justice bringing what to the Congo? So you're bringing what into darkness? You're bringing light. That seems to have some fairly kind of positive connotations to it. But what does Kurtz rip out of the manuscript so that no one sees the final words that Kurtz writes after he's kind of started to have his time in the Congo? What's that like postscript? Exterminate all the roots. And so the painting is in the brickmaker's office, so that's in Central Station before Interstation. So this is before he gets to where he's at now, and now you have this manuscript where there's kind of been a shift from someone who maybe had, I don't want to necessarily say the best of intentions, but seemed to have had, scroll up here a little bit. Maybe someone who was idealistic. And so with this thinking of the painting bringing justice to the Congo, but in reality, change Kurtz, exterminate the brutes. Actually, he said assassinate Brutus because he killed Caesar. How many times did Brutus stab Caesar?
A lot. It was just him who said it.
True. The conspirators, how many times did they? I thought this is one of the
Like
details that you
29.
remember for like
No, it was just a lot.
33.
It was unnecessary.
33.
I like
What else? I think the simplest, and there's a simple one I think that did kind of get mentioned earlier. I don't remember if Zach was the one who said it, or Heath or somebody else, but change Kurtz. I mean, if you were to describe Kurtz in a word, most folks would say, oh, he's just, insane, Sick, you could kind of go, we're talking mental, we talking physical, and we could certainly do both. So you would have someone who, at the very least, seemed to be sane. You have someone who has fallen into the depths of insanity. You would have someone who, if you're going to make the journey, was probably physically strong, and certainly by the end he has become sickly, ill, dead. You know, by the time you get to the bottom of page 147. Is that what happened to him? By the way, I did leave the layup answer on the quiz there yesterday. I omitted his dying words so that you would have the opportunity to put those in. You're welcome.
Oh, yay.
I took advantage of that.
Someone say my first thing.
Yeah.
This seems kind of silly. Human. How would he want to be perceived? The Russian, the Harlequin, you know, he brought thunder and lightning, you know, to the natives and all that kind of stuff. So certainly there has been a significant change that has taken place with Kurtz. Yesterday I said I want to take a look at page 148, and I do want to still take a look at page 148. The question we were taking a look at the end, why, you know, we were going over all these meanings as to the heart of darkness, Congo, you know, the River Thames, London, Europe, Kurtz's heart, soul, the whole idea of imperialism, and all those things would still absolutely be accurate. Why, though, would Marlowe still kind of look at him as being a little bit of a sympathetic character? On page 148, going to go into 149, and I want to kind of keep in mind, all right, there's been a change that has happened in Kurtz. Bottom of 147 is when Kurtz goes the horror, which we'll even kind of talk about. What does he mean by that? Which is one of those questions on that little study guide. Josh, I forgot to mention that to you. There's like, not a homework study guide, but there's some questions over there on the board that you can grab in a little bit. So bottom of 147, he cried in a whisper at some image, at some vision. He cried out twice, a cry that was no more than a breath, or a horror. Remember, as you walk out the door, just slap the horror on the doorway. At Notre Dame, they go play like a champion today. C247, we go, the horror, the horror. Why not? This is a mean, ugly world out there. This is your safe place. Fine, here.
Some people could debate on that.
Or some people would.
Put Karl Marx
But
on
they
the
are
other
wrong.
side of the door, so when I walk in, I'm like, Karl Marx.
148. You know, we have the Mr. Kurtz, he dead, and then all the pilgrims rush in. Very little paragraph then, so this is 1, 2, 3, fourth paragraph, and then they very nearly buried me. And I think people sometimes skip that part, or kind of forget. So what happens to Marlowe? He's also very ill, and again, I don't want to say that the book's an autobiography at this point, but we know Conrad contracts malaria. It would be, you know, a safe assumption that Marlowe also gets malaria. Who nurses him to health upon his return? Remember, the aunt kind of helps him back. So the aunt helped him get the job, and then the aunt for the year helps him kind of get back on his feet. So it's not that he got, you know, a fever for a little while. He's out of commission here for an extended amount of time. However, as you see, I did not go to join Kurtz there and then. I did not. I remained to dream the nightmare out to the end and to show my loyalty to Kurtz once more. Destiny, my destiny. Droll thing life is, that mysterious arrangement of merciless logic for a futile purpose. The most you hope from it is some knowledge of yourself. That comes too late, a crop of undistinguishable regrets. I have wrestled with death. It is the most unexciting contest you can imagine. It takes place in an impalpable grayness and nothing underfoot, with nothing around, without spectators, without clamor, without glory, without the great desire of victory, without the great fear of defeat, in a sickly atmosphere of tepid skepticism, without much belief in your own right, and still less in that of your adversary. If such is the form of ultimate wisdom, then life is a greater riddle than some of us think it to be. I was within a hair's breadth of the last opportunity for pronouncement, and I had found with humiliation that probably I have nothing to saying. This is the reason why I affirm that Kurtz was a remarkable man. He had something to say. He said it. Since I had peeped over the edge myself, I understand better the meaning of his stare that could not see the flame of the candle, but was wide enough to embrace the whole universe, piercing enough to penetrate all the hearts that beat in the darkness. He had summed up, he had judged the horror. He was a remarkable man. And you go down to the end of that paragraph. That is why I have remained loyal to Kurtz to the last and even beyond. When a long time after I heard once more, not his own voice, but the echo of his magnificent eloquence thrown to me from a soul as translucently pure as a cliff of crystal. Translucently pure. His soul is pure. That is one way to put it. Because I don't think, ivory, mistress, money, power, demigod, insanity. Is Marlowe nuts now for thinking that? Like, does insanity now describe Marlowe? What does he mean by pure? Because I don't think his viewpoint of purity is going to be the same thing that we typically, associate with the word. Why pure to describe Mr. Kurtz? It's on six. It's important.
Well, it's definitely not pure good.
No, and there's a difference because
Pure
I,
insanity.
well, he's not. I don't think Marlowe's going to go that far though. You're right in that it is not pure good. Pure insanity. If a person is insane, then we kind of discount what he or she has to say and does. So like I'm picturing the meeting with the attendant. He said your name. He went, no, he didn't. He was nuts. He said the horror. He thought of your face and then said the horror. Seventh period thought that was like a little too far. So don't worry about him. He simply went mad. Again, you're better off without him. He doesn't go quite that far with it.
I was gonna say pure, like, in the sense since they use like translucently beforehand, it means like that he always said what he was thinking. Like there was never something that he was keeping to himself.
So like authentic or genuine?
Yeah.
Okay. So whereas there's good Josh over here, bad Josh over here, we try to focus more on good Josh and don't listen to bad. Kurtz goes all in. Hey, if that means I'm going to accept this side of me, so be it, kind of thing. And then Evan will go.
Marlowe seems to think that Kurtz had like a clear view of the whole universe and like understood like everything kind of, which is weird because like he still acted in a way that was like greedy and selfish and objectively bad. But he seems mainly because he had last words, he seemed to think that like Kurtz was able to like take in the whole universe. To sum it up, he said the whole.
And I'm not going to forget about you. What do you think he means by when he says the horror, the horror? See, you really said.
That he, I don't know, that he doesn't think like the universe is that great.
Okay, so the world. Emma, not that you have to respond to what the horror means. You can if you want.
Yeah, mine kind of goes into that because I think when he's dying, he realizes what he's done. Like in his last moment, he's like, "Oh well, it's like he finally realizes that maybe what he was doing wasn't righteous." So like pure in the sense that he finally sees the wrong in all that he's done.
And that doesn't necessarily mean regret. Like, it would have been better, but I did some bad stuff. Some folks would say that, he's kind of at that, I'm at this heaven versus hell, and the elevator's going down. Boy, it's getting little toasty in here. You know, so it could be the actions. It could be what what I'm going to be facing the rest of my life. Anything for existence. Anything else with the horde?
Kind of to add on to that, I mean, it says on 147, Marlowe was like, did he live his life again in every detail, desire, temptation, surrender during that supreme moment of complete knowledge?
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of think that it was, everything just like dawned upon him that like, not just that he had done, but that he had seen.
Complete knowledge. I'm going to kind of add on to this. Complete knowledge of what?
The consequences of his action.
Okay, so complete knowledge. I'm not trying to twist your answer.
No.
I think you would agree then with himself.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is turning into a philosophical thing, which tends to happen. I minored in French till I realized that I didn't really know French. So then I switched to philosophy so that I could have deep thoughts about being unemployed. Fortunately, I got a job, but we still kind of bring this idea
Nothing
in.
to philosophy.
Yeah. Anyone have complete knowledge of him or herself?
Nope.
I mean, and I don't mean it as being a loaded, complex question where it's solely impossible to answer. Like unfair questions act, or you have like, hey, I know like a third of myself. Am I at 50%?
I don't know, because like, I just kind of like do whatever, and then like, it's not like
Sounds like a 15%. Anyone feel like, and we're not like going to try to disprove it, that yeah, you do have pretty good knowledge of yourself. I have no clue about myself. Like where do we kind of fall?
I mean, we can know
Closer to
ourselves.
the no clue.
We can't know ourselves subconsciously, because if we knew ourselves subconsciously, then we'd just be able to do everything perfectly. You'd be able to be like, oh, this is my motivation for doing this,
Mm-hmm.
and so let me get to the root of this issue and stop that.
And I don't know if for us sitting in the room, because a literary character is different than flesh and bone. Do you ever fully know yourself? Probably not. What would be things that certainly help you gain knowledge to yourself? In simplest terms, probably experience. Because the more types of situations that you handle, the more that you start to kind of learn about yourself. You can certainly go that, yes, I'll be an honest person. Well, if you're in a situation where, your honesty can negatively impact you in some way, grade, punishment, financial matters or whatever, is that really going to happen? It would seem from the passage that Josh read that what has Kurtz finally gained?
Self-awareness.
Yeah, like self-awareness, probably as good a term as any, and his line that he has for it, the whore. You think about Marlowe's business card, Charles Marlowe. What would his profession be underneath? Different things we could put. You could put sailor, ship captain, explorer, professional wanderer, all the adventure seeker and all that kind of stuff. Where do explorers want to go? My fifth graders are reading right now about Magellan and Ponce de Leon and all the Cortez and conquistadors and all this kind of what I think is fun stuff. What do explorers want to find? Stuff that other people haven't. And that's where you get your Star Trek moment, to boldly go where no man has gone before. And some people shake their head up and down and others start going like this. But where has Kurtz gone? He has gone to the place where he has complete knowledge of himself, where in a sense it's not a physical journey that Marlowe is going on in search of Kurtz and trying to understand him, but it is more of a psychological journey. And what has he ultimately discovered? What is the final endpoint? And I think you could kind of think about this when it comes to in what ways is the novella universally an allegorical tale for humanity. We were saying before when we're coming up with different reasons for Heart of Darkness, what could it mean? It could mean the heart of Kurtz. It would seem that if you look at Kurtz as, you know, he has come to this full end journey, it's not Kurtz's heart that is full of darkness. It's probably you. It's not Chandler. No, not Chandler.
Not Chandler.
Great
Not
guess.
well, that's
Chandler,
true.
no. Chandler's the Buddha sitting on the boat telling the story. But Kurtz, Kurtz's Heart of Darkness is one that could be, you know, universally applied to all. If you were to put yourself in a situation where there are no rules, there are no regulations, there are no restrictions, there are no consequences, this could happen. From a European viewpoint, okay, so let's say we're looking at this from a European perspective of 1899, what would the reason be as to why Kurtz fell into insanity and despair? Partially, but I bet this would try to be scientifically proven. Isolation in the Congo, which physically, think of the doctor, caused his brain to shrink and therefore become more primitive. Does that happen? No. But it's basically, you know, this could be excused, this could be understood why the change would happen that we were outlining and all of this stuff. In reality, why did the change happen? And I don't think, again, it's greed. I don't think it's just greed, it's corruption. I think that's a byproduct of it. Why does all this happen? Because there are no consequences. Yeah, there's no rules, there's no limitations to them whatsoever. And he fully embraces it. And that's not something that probably Marlowe has kind of seen before. And so when Marlowe does come to, you know, death's door, so to speak, when he could be buried next to Kurtz, I can't sum it up. He could. He was able to kind of go a step further. And I think that that authenticity, that genuineness, you know, he kind of accepts it. In a way, Kurtz is like the Darth Vader of literature. He's the bad guy. They're like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then Marlowe's trying to explain why he's actually a good guy, even though he's done all these horrific things to other people. But you know, where certainly this change becomes important would be, we know that Marlowe has now been affected by Kurtz. We know that the narrator has been affected by Kurtz because of the change that he has in his viewpoint as to where that waterway goes and all that kind of stuff. The impact, certainly you could look at imperialism and all those things, but the impact that Conrad, I think, is really taking a look at is that psychological journey, that understanding, that knowledge of yourself is pretty rare to find, and this is a person who found it. And he didn't really see good stuff, you know, when it all comes down to. For number 4, not that we're going to answer all of this stuff, why do you think then Marlowe isn't going to tell the intended, like, this? I had this eye-opening experience. Your fiance was the greatest human I ever met. He was fully, like, completely into himself, and if it meant murdering people and cheating on you, he would do it. So you know what? He went where no other person would go. You should keep a picture of him. He said you're right. He loved you. Why protect Kurtz in that way? Or is it a case of protecting the intended? My generation, we think back to the movie A Few Good Men. Unfortunately, very few of you have ever seen the movie A Few Good Men. Grant acknowledging that he's never seen the movie or he knows the movie.
I've seen bits and pieces.
Yeah, on YouTube, if you type in A Few Good Men, you're going to see Tom Cruise and Jack Nicholson, and it's going to be, I want the truth! And then Jack Nicholson goes, you can't handle the truth! Oh yeah, now you saw it.
Don't look my name.
I know of that.
And that's kind of like the clip that's going on in my head whenever I think of Marlowe's encounter with the intendant, where she does want to know, you know, every last little detail about him. You know, what day did he, what time was it when he died? What was he wearing? What did he say? All these things. And she is too, I know the words we use were plain, you know, in comparison to the mistress. But maybe too, I don't want to say weak. Maybe meek is a better, naive, to be able to kind of handle that type of thing, which isn't a poor representation of her, but that would be a representation of everybody. And I think when you focus on the book, it becomes, boy, Kurtz is a really terrible person, but I think it really is meant to be more allegorical, where Kurtz would be kind of representative of the average European and what could happen, and the intended, the aunt, you know, any of the other seemingly minor characters are more representative of the fact that no one wants to really discover, handle, understand what's at the core of all of us. It's that heart of darkness. So when I grade your essays, and I complain about everything, it's not my fault. It's me trying to tap into that inner heart. Sometimes the darkness must present itself.
Nice.
We'll see what happens. So shooting an elephant. It's not really an easy transition from that one. No tying in with imperialism. Shooting an elephant tomorrow. We're going to talk about shooting an elephant on Thursday, and then you know, your essays for Thursday, and then we'll finish off Heart of Darkness on Friday. Lovely multiple choices.
I'm gonna find a way to read
I read it and it actually
I'm
had
sure
a
you
dandy old time reading it.
The dandy old time.
Like I actually like
Can we
reading
make
it.
a connection to communism?
Well, isn't it George Orwell?
Yeah.
Because that's always interesting.
So I'm gonna make it an allegory.
An orange Orwell.
Orange.
Mr. Q, we said Guardians of the Galaxy.